I'm Larry Harris, and I was very much involved with the Jay County High School Band. I was a member of the trumpet section the first 3 years that Jay County High School existed, so that would be, I guess, the graduating classes of 76, 77, and 78. I was also drum major for the marching band for those 3 years, along with Jim Walsmith, and then somebody else after that, I forget who. And then I came back later, and for 2 years was assistant director at the high school and director at East Jay Middle School. So needless to say, it had a huge impact on my life. As a matter of fact, I'm still completely convinced that my juvenile sense of humor was completely formed with the music faculty at Jay County High School by Dave Humbert, by Glenn Priest, Dennis Wasson, Pete Vogler, Tom Gressick. I've since discovered that a lot of musicians have wacky senses of humor, but it was an absolute blast. A couple of things happened that I could tell about. The first one actually doesn't reflect very well on me. It was my junior or senior year, and we had made the regional or state field show competition. And so we were driving somewhere far away to go, and I got there, and I grew up on a farm by Bluff Point, if anybody knows where that is. And anyway, it was like 7 or 8 miles from school. And so I get out there, I've got my uniform bag, I've got everything I need except my shoes. I left my black shoes at home. Well, it was almost time to leave, so I go to Mr. Humbert. You know, what could I say? It was a real dumb thing to do. I left my shoes at home. So we ended up going to a trumpet player, a guy named Greg Emmel. He was a friend of my 2 younger brothers, so I remember it. And he was kind enough to let me wear his shoes because his feet were about the same size as mine. And so I wore his shoes, and he just marched in black socks. And I still, Greg, if you're listening to this, I still owe you a steak dinner for doing that. But to Dave Humbert's credit, he never gave me a hard time about it. He didn't yell at me. He didn't get mad. I'm sure he wasn't happy, but I really appreciate that because I felt really bad for doing it. But anyway, that was one thing. Another thing, I assume it's still done this way, but I'm not sure. When I was assistant director, we had made the Sweet 16 at the State Fair. Now, the way it used to work, I don't know if it still does or not, but you would march in the morning, and then if you did well, you were chosen to be one of the Sweet 16, and you'd come back that night and march, and that's when they awarded the prizes and stuff. So anyway, in between the morning and the evening, the band would be released to just go hang out at the fair and eat and do the rides and whatever they wanted to do. Well, when we came back that night, we're finally up to the starting line. It's almost our turn. And as assistant director, I was back by the percussion section getting ready to get things started. And then I hear, "Mr. Harris." And I go over, it was this bass drummer. I'm pretty sure he was a freshman. Well, it turns out that during the time in between the morning show and the evening show, he had gone on the Ferris wheel and the tilt-a-whirl, and I'm not sure what else. He'd had an elephant ear, a pineapple whip ice cream, and a purple snow cone, and and a taffy apple, and had all this stuff to eat. It was very colorful stuff too, and you'll figure out why that matters in a minute. Well, you have to also remember that back in those days, this is like prehistoric days of percussion equipment, the bass drum, it wasn't easy to take on and take off. There were these series of straps and buckles, and you had to hold it in place, and then somebody else had to buckle it, take it around your back, and then buckle it on. And this was a freshman, so he was a smaller kid. He wasn't fully grown yet, and so it was a real challenge to get it off and on. And I go over, and he said, "Mr. Harris, I don't feel so good." And then right when I get there, everything he had eaten in all its living color came up all over himself, all over the bass drum, and he's strapped into this thing. There's no way to easily get him out, and it's almost time to start. He said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Play the show. I'll help you. I'll meet you at the finish line." So he played the show, to his credit. He made it to the end. As soon as we got to the end, I pulled him out and we unstrapped him, and it was such a mess. And also, as those of you know, to make it even worse, it was an extremely hot, humid day, which it was really gross. But I give him credit. He played the show. He was a trooper. The third story I have goes by way of a public apology. And that's because my wife asked me a few weeks ago, what's one of the meanest things you ever did? And this story came to mind. And I was thinking about what I was going to say for this video. And Carla May, this is an apology to you. My junior year, I was second chair trumpet, and Carla May, a very fine trumpet player, was the first chair trumpet player. And so we were an organizational contest, and sight reading was part of it. So they pass out the piece. Well, you're looking at it. Turns out there's a trumpet solo for about 4 or 5 measures in the middle of the piece. And Carla, as was her prerogative as section leader, decided she was going to do it. And when the time came, you know, the band overall was not a particularly great reading band. And I'm sure you guys just nail everything now the first time. But back then we weren't. And Carla kind of froze up a little bit, and it didn't go too well. Well, I thought I could have done it better, which I don't know if I could have or not. But before we passed it in, I memorized the solo, and then we got back to the room where our cases and coats were. And Carla was bent over putting her horn back in its case, and I stood behind her and played the solo, just to be mean. And I am not at all proud of that. It was kind of funny in a way, but it was a mean funny, and I shouldn't have done it. So Carla May, this is my apology to you. I am so sorry. You were a wonderful young lady, and I shouldn't have done that. So anyway, those are my stories, but I can't tell you what an impact being a member of Jay County High School Band and being a part of the music department overall has had on my life. I mean, I've become a professional musician. I got the chance to do some arranging, both for choirs and for band when I was in high school. There were a whole bunch of things I got to do, and I also was very appreciative because all the directors that I worked with didn't treat us like we were a bunch of stupid kids. You know, they treated us like fellow human beings, and I really appreciate that. I had a blast. I have great memories, so I'll see you. Bye.